right. Well, there was a new monk arrived at the monastery, and he was assigned to help the other monks in copying the old texts by hand. And he noticed, however, that they were copying copies, not the original books. So the new monk went to the head monk to ask him about this. And he pointed out that if there were an error in the first copy, that error would be continued in all of the other copies. So the head monk said, "We have been copying from the copies for centuries, but you make a good point, my son." So the head monk went down into the cellar with one of the copies to check it against the original. Hours later, no one had seen him, so one of the monks went downstairs to look for him. He heard a sobbing coming from the back of the cellar and found the old monk leaning over one of the original books, crying. And he asked what was wrong. The head monk said, as he was sobbing, "The word is celebrate, not celibate." I have been waiting to tell that joke for so long. So, this is our first Sunday as we embark on this 7-week exploration of the book Living Originally, 10 Spiritual Practices to Transform Your Life. I thought, wow, just that title just grabbed me. And this book was written by Robert Brummett, who many of you know was my advisor in ministerial school. So he's very near and dear to my heart. And also, this man has a consciousness that is just so profound and so deep. He's written about 4 books, and every single book is just so beautiful and filled with spiritual practices and a spiritual consciousness that is always uplifting and inspiring and empowering to me. So I wanted to share Robert Brummett with you, and I wanted to bring this book to you as well, because I love the 10 spiritual practices, because this is, again, what really has excited me since the very first day I walked into Unity, is that Unity is about the practical application of spiritual teachings. And so I know that what I've been doing over the last 20 years is just building my toolbox. Because as we know, we might have a tool or two in our toolbox, and one day we might pull it away, well, that doesn't really resonate for me right now. Let me go to something else. And so what we're doing is we're building our toolbox. And these are 10 very profound spiritual practices that I know will be transformational. I just know that. So, all right. So we're looking at living originally. What does it mean to live originally? And so a quote from the book says this: "To live consciously." Okay, so to live originally is to live consciously from the ever-present origin of life, to live from the very source of all that is. Now, you already live from the source of all that is. You already do that, whether you're conscious of it or not. But the point of this book is to awaken us to living consciously, to be aware of the original, meaning the divine, whole, magnificent being that we are. Because, see, this is the thing, this is the tricky part about this life experience, is that we've forgotten our true identity. We've forgotten. And we are identifying with a mistaken identity. It's called the false self or the persona. And it's unoriginal. And this false self has been passed on to us from our parents and from their parents and then from their parents. It's from our conditioning. Yeah, that false self, that mask that we wear, a personality. It's our personality selves. So the false self is based on the outer little r reality we've talked about, that is always in change, versus the inner big R reality that is constant and true. So our false self is based on this relative world that is constantly changing, where we constantly feel like we have to adapt ourselves to survive and to relate to others. Folks, that's not the truth of us. And so the opportunity that we're having in this exploration is to look at what is true so that we can live from that awareness and from that knowing. However, our personality, there's nothing wrong with our personality self. It's pretty vital, in our human experience. We all have one. But we think about, just bring to mind the ways that you've been conditioned in your life. How you've been raised and taught by parents and teachers and siblings and grandparents and clergy and peers and other people and factors of influence in your life. And bring to mind how you describe yourself. What are the descriptors? Because I know that some of those, probably a lot of those, have been given to you by these people of influence and may or may not be true. Let me give you some examples. Maybe rich or poor, smart, dumb, lazy, tired, angry, responsible, sad, good at this, maybe bad at that. Think of the labels we have adopted. You're of a certain family, a race, intelligence, the accomplishments we have attained, the religion that we practice, the political party we're affiliated with, our sexual orientation, our physical abilities or disabilities, the cultural roles and biases that we've taken on that can be unconscious. All of this, folks, is our false self. And even the things that we think are positive. Because the thing that is evident to me, that I think Robert Brummett's trying to help us see, and I keep working with this, in our human experience, we really think that this outer world is what's real. We think it's what's true. And what he's trying to get us to see, folks, is that really nothing in this world is inherently true. What you are, though, is inherently true. Nothing in this world. And Jesus, taught this idea of being in the world and not of the world. We can be in the world, and we get to be in the world, but to remember that we're not of this world. That there's that of us that is unchanging and whole and beautiful, regardless of what any experience ever has been in your life, regardless of what anyone has ever said to you in your life. There is that of you that is whole and beautiful and magnificent. But I think, sometimes we try. He talks about how we try to be original, and I think about my teenage years. Teenagers, they're wonderful because they teach us, and we look at them, they're looking to identify and claim themselves as an adult in this world, to identify themselves. And sometimes, I remember as a teenager some things I did just to try and be my original self, my authentic self. I was trying to get my sea legs and who I really was. And how sometimes, young people might dye their hair purple or date somebody that their parents are going, oh my God, or, whatever it is. But I don't think it's just teenagers. I think as adults, we keep trying to make our mark and to be original. We work so hard. We work way too hard. Yeah, through earning more and more money and being driven and accomplished. And sometimes we even try to be original by underachieving or being the unique one in our family, however way it shows up. But there's a quote that Robert Brummett brought forth that I just really resonated with from Reverend Dr. Cynthia Bourgeault, and it says this: being original doesn't mean trying to be different. It means being connected to the origin. You can't be original by trying to be original. You become original by staying true to what your heart sees. And remember, becoming, you already are original. You become it in your awareness, in your claiming, and in your expression. Staying true to what your heart sees, meaning staying true to your own wisdom and the love of your being instead of what the outer world tells you. See, being original is an inside job. Staying true is an inside job. And that can be so tricky in our world, can it? Again, because there's so many ways that we feel like we need to be in order to fit in to the world. So your heart, staying true to what your heart sees. And when we do that, we allow that divine essence that we are to become our full authenticity and our authority. And when we allow, it cancels out the trying. We're allowing. And you know, what Robert Brummett, and especially we'll get into this in later in the book, actually really the next chapter, is that in order for us to become original, a transformation has to take place. A transformation has to happen because we've given our false self so much power. Talk about identity theft. That is the biggest heist, that we have given up our originality for a mistaken identity. And we have actually let the world determine what we are and what we are capable of being, doing, and expressing. And of course, you know, it seems like when I'm in this exploration, you know, because I'm in it during the week before I'm writing this talk, and when something pops on my radar screen, I have to pay attention. And I was sent something on social media about a woman named Lisa Nichols. Have you heard of Lisa Nichols? Yes. She is a dynamo, and apparently she was in the movie The Secret. I did not know that. But I was sent this video that was very compelling, and I watched it, and I was so smitten because I thought, this is such a beautiful example of someone that had bought into a mistaken identity and said yes to allowing her original identity to express. Okay, let me tell you just a little bit about Lisa. Lisa grew up in a rough neighborhood situated between two warring gangs in South Los Angeles. She never got above a C in school. Her English teacher told her she should never write, and her speech teacher told her she would never speak in public. Lisa attempted to go to college but had to leave because she didn't have the financial resources to continue. In her 20s, she had 5 different jobs that she got fired from, and at age 27 found herself raising a child whose father was in prison. She was on government assistance with less than $12 in her bank account. The moment she couldn't afford Pampers for her baby son was the turning point in her life. After so much trying, so much struggle, Lisa said to herself, I felt rock bottom, and I realized I have to do something. I have to be my own rescue. No one's going to rescue me. From that point forward, she began a journey to release her mistaken identity, her false self, and to live into a new identity of self-worth, self-love, forgiveness, and prosperity. She made the necessary changes in the outer world to support her. She moved into housing that would support her and her son. She got a job. She started writing a check to her dream every week. But truly, what was the most riveting to me were the changes that she made within herself. She did her inner healing work, and she said she started looking at every toxic behavior. She had to move beyond her brain, which she says was about safety, and embrace her spirit, which was about flying. She started to be in service to others because she learned this truth from the successful people who were mentoring her. All success is on the other side of service. And every day she declared, I have nothing to protect, I have nothing to prove, I have nothing to hide, and I have nothing to defend. And if she could not say these sentences authentically, she would do the work she needed to, so she could. And then she would say, now who do I choose to be? Every day she would fill in these sentences for herself. Lisa, I'm proud of you for. Lisa, I forgive you for. Lisa, I commit to you that. She turned her life around. And she's now a millionaire entrepreneur, a best-selling author, a humanitarian, and a motivational speaker. Her multi-million-dollar company called Motivating the Masses has reached and served nearly 30 million people. She teaches people to turn their own breakdowns into breakthroughs, to discover their infinite divine potential. See, she was an ordinary person, folks, that made the decision to start living originally. And what it took from her was a shift in consciousness. What it took from her is transformation. And it took from her, first and foremost, is willingness. And see, that's one of the foundational pieces that we're looking at in this book study. Are we willing? Are we willing to make the changes that it takes for us to live originally? And in class this past Wednesday, we just did a simple exercise with each other. We had people turn to each other in dyads, and just make declarations of willingness. I am willingness to live originally. I am willing to shift my identity and do the practices that it takes for that to outpicture. I am willing to transform. Setting that intention. So are we willing? Are we willing? That's the question of the hour today. So I just invite you this week. I'd love for you to join in on this book study. Even if you don't come to the class, just know that the reflection questions that we're looking at every week will be in the back of the sanctuary. Feel free to pick them up and follow along with us. Again, even if you don't come to a class, it's just so fine. We'd love to have you following with us. And so this week, I just invite you to do a little digging. Where have you bought into a false identity? What are the descriptors that you're using to label yourself? And what would life be like for you to live originally? I'm sure the possibilities will be endless. Let's affirm together. I am open and willing to live originally. I stay true to what my heart sees. Yes, I do.